Hey everybody, I'm hanging out here with the Midas M32 console, giving you some tips and tricks to help you improve your workflow. Of course, anything we talk about on the M32 would apply to any M series or Behringer X series digital consoles. And today I want to talk about subgroups. So if you grew up mixing on an analog mixer, then subgroups are something you're pretty familiar with. Usually you would have an input section, and then this section over here on an analog mixer would usually be some sort of subgroups or submixers. And basically what that allowed you to do is instead of sending a channel directly to your main left and right output, you could send a group of channels, like your drums, to a submix output, and then you had faders to control your drum mix separately. Now on digital consoles, we can achieve that same function by just using DCAs. DCAs are much easier to assign, much faster to use. The other advantage, though, that subgroups used to create was you could process groups of channels together. What that means is maybe you have different EQs for each of your drum mics, but then you want to apply a global EQ or a global compression setting to your whole drum set. You could do that through a subgroup. And so setting up a subgroup is pretty easy. You're going to have to use some of your mix buses. So that's the sacrifice that you'll make. You only have 16 mix buses on the console, and you'd have to use some of them as subgroups. And if you wanted that full group of channels to be stereo going out of your system, then you'd actually have to eat up 2 mix buses. But here's how you do it in case you wanted to know. So what you're going to need to do first is find a mix bus that you're going to use as a subgroup. I'm going to go to page 2 here, and I'm going to use mix buses 9 and 8. So first thing I'm going to do is select mix bus 9 and 8, and I'm going to link them together using this link function. That means they're going to operate together as a stereo set, and the first 9 is going to be panned left by default, 10 is going to be panned right. So I've now created that into a stereo mix. The second thing I need to do is to route that to my main left and right. So while I still have that selected, I'm going to go to my output section and make sure that main left and right is selected. That means that anything that comes through this subgroup is going to go to left and right. Now I'm going to go to my channel, and in my same main out section, I'm going to disable left and right. Okay, so while that's enabled, if I raise this channel, you'll notice that it gets louder in my house. As soon as I disable that, it goes away because that's a routing function. And what we're going to do now is we're going to route this microphone to our new subgroup. So I'm going to go to my sends view. I'm going to turn this knob until I get to my section that highlights 9 through 12. And I'm going to set 9 and 10 using this knob function we talked about in another tech tip. You hit down here. You can set this to subgroup. If I go all the way down, set to subgroup. Okay. Now if I go back to this page, you'll notice I don't have level controls anymore. I have mutes. And so subgroups are a little backwards from DCAs. On a DCA, you say which channels you want to go to the DCA. On a subgroup, you have to mute the channels you don't want to go. So since I do want this to go, I leave the mute off. But if for some reason I didn't want a channel to go to that subgroup, I would just mute it using the button there. Okay, so now I'm talking, we can see that I have signal here, we can see that I have signal in my subgroup. I'm not hearing anything in my main fader yet because this is down, so as I turn this up, now I have subgroup control of whatever channels I have left unmuted going into those subgroups.